Okay.
What we done, we all said was.
The one in overtime.
All right, it's 12 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order, please. Could you call roll, please? How do they get on?
We're starting the meeting. Is that what you were asking? As soon as we do this, they are muted and they have, so all they have to do is turn their microphones on, and they have to turn their cameras on if they wish to do that. But they can talk with it just being, if they just unmute themselves too.
We took it back.
That's right. And for everybody, can you turn on your mics, please? I'll explain in just a couple minutes. Here. They're not members. Here.
Blair.
Here.
Grinde.
Here.
Hecht.
Here.
Horken.
Here.
Helms.
Here.
All right, approved minutes. Approval of minutes from September 20th, 2022, regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, bills and communications. Review of accounts payable October 4th, October 25th, November 1st, and November 15th of 2022. Any questions? I didn't know we had that much money.
It's on the next report.
Yeah, there we go. Any questions? Seeing none? Okay. Reports, delinquency update.
We have no delinquencies.
Financial report, September 22nd and September and October of 2022.
Okay, so everybody, thank you, President. Everybody received copies of each fund and the activity year to date. And then there's also a cash account for each account. And they're all looking good except the EDA General Fund, which is Fund 620. As you remember, runs as a negative because at year end, the City Council approves a transfer out of the general fund to cover those expenses. And they have budgeted over 200, and we spent 181 so far. So if anybody has any questions on anything,
It's a flow down.
or if you ever have questions, you can always contact me in my office, and we can get those answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else to ask Carla? Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Director's report for September and October 2022.
There are a variety of activities. A couple of them we're going to discuss in more detail later today. If you have any questions or any comments, just let me know, please.
All right, we're going to skip over number 5 and go to new business, Northland Community and Technical College. President Dr. Sandy Keto.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Dr. Cadu. When I say doctor, it sounds funny. I'm not used to that. I don't think I ever will be. Anyway, but I'm Sandy, and I am excited to be here. And Paul asked me to come in and just talk about some of the things that are going on in Northland. If you were not at the state of the college earlier, I talked about a variety of different things. I think one of the first I'll talk about is our enrollment. We are significantly down in our enrollment, and it's a downward trend. We've lost over the last 10 years, about 45% of our enrollment. And that, we have an inverse relationship with the economy. When the economy is really good, everybody's going to work. When it's not so good, they usually come back to school. But the problem right now is that we have employers that are continually looking for skilled individuals that come from the variety of programs that we have, and we are struggling for enrollment. And people will ask me, like, what specific programs? I think the only program that is probably at capacity is our construction electricity program. The rest of them are all down in. Even nursing, we took the smallest number of nurses in this past fall cohort than we ever had. The good news is that our spring cohort, we actually have more than we did in our fall. So I don't know if it's, and there's a lot of things at play. The economy, there's also some of our programs like our healthcare and our protective services. There's kind of a negative light in the public and people aren't necessarily wanting to go into those areas. The four-year university system, and they're great and they're wonderful, but they actually changed a lot of their admission requirements. So people who were maybe historically might not have gotten into, like the UNDs and the Moorheads, are now getting in because they're not necessarily only looking at ACT scores. So sometimes their enrollment's up, ours is down. But we're working to continue to try to figure out how we can make sure that students know of the opportunities that are in the area, as well as understanding, do we have the right programs, are they offered at the right times, and the right modalities, and what campuses do we offer them, because we do have the campus in Thief River Falls. We also have a site in War Road now. So that's our enrollment picture, continuing to work with that. The pandemic certainly didn't help. We're looking at recruiting more and spending more time within our local high schools to understand that pathway into us, as well as our non-traditional occupations. So one of the things that we looked at was we're getting a lot of calls from employers saying we need students, we need students. Our students are really savvy. They actually, I read a statistic, about 50% of our this is national statistic, 50% of students don't even want to go into college because they don't, they're like, is it worth it? I don't want to take on the cost. And that used to be, the college going rate used to be probably about 75% of graduating classes were going into some form of higher education. So that's a significant shift. And so we had this idea of, how do we connect our students with employers that are going to help sponsor or pay for their tuition? And employers are more and more offering generous benefits such as that, because and a retention incentive as well. And we have a lot of employers that will pay tuition assistance in some form. And so we launched a website called Northland Works several weeks ago. And if you go to our website, and it's just /works. And what it is we're listing employers, and we're starting to populate it. So if you know of employers that offer any kind of tuition assistance, they can list their contact information on that website. And what it is intended to do is to help our students who may want to go to work access education, as well as, there's internship opportunities. Employers do a lot of different types of things. So that is Northland Works, and it's really intended to capture those students who are going out to work, because we know that long-term, that's not going to help them and their communities without educational credentials. So that is the one kind of new and exciting thing that we have going on. A couple other cool things that we have going on is the War Road site. I just mentioned that. We opened up this past August. We accepted our first students up there, and that's a partnership with Marvin Windows that is donating us space and equipment, and we're offering our mechatronics program. We also have that mechatronics program here up in War Road, and that's that's an access issue for students who may be up in that area to get to a campus. So it's kind of an exciting thing to have. And it's not just for Marvin, even though Marvin's funding a lot of it, it's not just for Marvin's employees, they're opening it up for everybody. So that's a great thing to have. Let me think, there was one other thing. Do you remember what I was supposed to put?
I was thinking basically the work-school relationships.
Yes, the work-school relationships. So we are working, I should say, I have a new Dean of Student Affairs, and Jeff Poole, he bought a house here in East Grand Forks, down on the point, I guess is what you call it. Anyway,
one of our lots.
And his wife teaches in 5th grade. So it was kind of, I think 5th grade, 3rd grade. She teaches at an elementary school here. So it was kind of, we offered him the job on Monday, and we gave him the name of the school district, and I think by the next day she had a job offer. So that was a great thing. So he relocated here from the Mankato area, and He has a bit of a different philosophy, and I did too, because we were spending a lot of time trying to recruit outside of the area, recruit students to come here. And so we are working really hard to change that a little bit in terms of building those partnerships with our local high schools. East Grand Forks has the academy, Grand Forks has the academy. A lot of schools are going to that model. So we're building our programs and curricula so that students can take their concurrent enrollment options, get credit in high school, and then come right to us. So we're working really hard on making sure that our students know of those opportunities and understand them. I think one of the challenges in the concurrent enrollment world is getting good advice, so you're not just taking classes to take classes, because there's implications for financial aid if you take too many of the wrong kinds of classes, that you might lose your financial aid eligibility. So getting that good advice up front. So, I mean, I always use the example of I had, at another college I was at, I had somebody who wanted to come into nursing, and they had 30 credits of history from high school. Okay, that's great. But if you get above 150% of your program, then you're not going to be able to do that. So they were taking it because they enjoyed it and loved it, and I would wish I could say that was a great thing, but that's one of the restraints we have from the federal financial aid system in terms of they don't want to pay for people to be professional students anymore, I guess. So we're working really hard at that. Yes.
What do you count as your local region? How far out?
Yeah, so Minnesota is weird. Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. I know. No, Minnesota is different. I've been in 2 other states, and the other 2 states had a very defined service region. Like, you could not cross into that county or that area without permission from that other institution of higher education. We don't have that in Minnesota. So we don't have a very specifically defined service region, but we do, go in, we're the only game in town furthest north. And then we'll go quite a bit west, and then we'll go to the south. We're in Norman County. We do go into some of those, but the other interesting statistic is 40% of our students are from North Dakota. So that's a huge amount of students that are from North Dakota, given that we have a campus in Thief River Falls, as well. So, okay.
Other questions?
How are you getting information out to the business community on the Northland Works to get signed up and on the program, so to speak?
Great question. I have the phonetic listing of the person's name. We just hired, and I think this is her 2nd week. We just hired. Her name is Chrissy Ann Borowski, and I can get that. I can get that information out to you. So we have our traditional academic programs, but then we also have what some people call customized training or workforce training. And that's for businesses who want to, say if you want to do, a safety class or something, you can come and get trained. We have only had 2 people in that area, and they're primarily out of the Thief River Falls area. So Christiane is here in East Grand Forks, and her role is to work with businesses and get that out there.
We were waiting until you brought her on, so I could work with her
Yeah.
to get out to connect with the businesses.
I think this is her 2nd week, so she's not been here very long.
Right after the holidays, it's like we'll sit down together.
And anyway, any business that wants to go onto the website, there is a form that they can submit, and then Chrissy Ann or Kirsten would contact that business.
Paul, is that something then that we could include on our Facebook page and our
Yes.
and our post?
When we get the information, because we're just bringing the person online right now, we needed to have that online before we could start to put all these things together, because Sandy announced the program at the State of the College, or talked about the program at the State of the College. I asked her if she could be here for today's meeting so she could tell you about the Northland Works program.
Because that sounds really exciting.
Yeah. You mentioned the workforce training. I know we do our MSHA through you guys, which has been a great thing to have somebody come in. Will that expand? Are you looking to expand that in the future, to go into businesses and be able to do things like that?
Yeah.
To larger groups?
Because, and we haven't had the staff to be able to do that. And so that's the first thing I said, is we have to have we have to hire some more people in that area. So
Yeah.
she's our first hire in that area, because that's also that inverse relationship I talked to. When our academic programs don't have the numbers, we can be serving our businesses in a bigger way.
Great.
So she is intended to work this region specifically and the Northland Works program.
Great.
You know, is there other areas where the city could prioritize some of our involvement that would help with the enrollment drop? You know, I'm thinking like, is there not housing available that would be a good fit? Is it childcare? You know, is there other things that could happen more community-wide that may benefit Northland?
Yeah. Childcare is always going to be a challenge. Because, you know, a lot of our students are parents, and just the same challenges that the employers are having, we have as well. You know, we talked about, you know, adding a childcare facility on campus, and that's just not feasible for us. And we have a childcare program, an early childhood education program. We don't have the numbers in that either. But when you said housing, I don't know that our students have had a challenge getting housing. I haven't heard that. In Thief River Falls, we do have housing there. We are contemplating some of our because we have athletics in Thief River, so we're contemplating possibly athletics down here. So I don't know what that would look like in terms of, you know, we have land, but we don't have necessarily the physical space for that. I think there's also some opportunities for just sharing some services, probably. Like, we do have a fitness facility there, but, you know, those types of things that our students want. Our students also are really looking for just activities and to be engaged and when they're on campus. And we just, you know, we were missing that during the pandemic, but we also, you know, have lost so much in staffing that it's hard to do. But like today, I just left and they were doing a grocery bingo. So, or Thanksgiving pie bingo. And I mean, students love that sort of thing, to take just an hour and do that. But I should mention that we are adding a small food pantry for our students. And, you know, any partnership that we can have. I mean, we would, of course, refer our students out to the other food pantries, but sometimes that's just a challenge getting our students to and from. And so any of those sorts of things, we just did a warm coat drive. You would be surprised how many students come from other places and don't have appropriate winter gear, especially in Thief River Falls, our poor basketball players and baseball players that come from Texas and Florida. And
Culture shock.
they don't have the right clothes.
Just as a point of information, I contacted Nancy earlier to reserve time for a meeting that'll occur in early December with Stephanie Ledoux on that child care program and one of the members of the child care team. We're going to talk about that link on educating child care and preparing child care workers for jobs within the industry.
Yeah, you know, one of my challenges is just the physical space that we have on campus. Even though our numbers are down, I don't have room to add anything like that, because our programs have pretty big labs. I know our construction and trades programs. That facility, I don't know if you've been in it, was built after the flood to train workers, but it needs to be updated. So we're in the process of. We're hoping that there's going to be a bonding bill before the next legislature, because we're part of that, to do a significant remodel in our facilities here in East Grand Forks. But if it's not, it'll be in the next bonding bill.
I was just going to ask specifically, with you adding staff, are you running into any issues finding staffing locally?
Oh, yeah. So we actually, it's such a difficult thing to talk about, because we just did a reduction in workforce where we offered early retirements, and we have laid off a couple individuals, but then we're adding staff in other areas because it's, we're imbalanced in some areas. And so we have quite a bit of turnover, and then we're struggling with hiring in almost all of our areas. There are some of our searches right now that we don't have any applicants. Our challenge is that we once were one of the more competitive employers, and especially with anybody in North Dakota. It's now the exact opposite, just because of the state of Minnesota's wages and benefit packages. So we're struggling. I think we have 13 searches going on right now. So a college my size, that's significant. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
I will send you the Northland Works.
And I included it
Oh, okay.
in here. I
I'll
actually,
send you Chrissy Ann's.
the one that I took from,
Okay, perfect.
remember? Does that look familiar?
Yes.
For everybody out there in the viewing audience.
Partner.
But if you'd send me the link directly, what I would do is I distribute it, and we could put the link onto the Facebook page right away.
Okay.
Okay? So if you get me that. And Christiane's name and contact information. All right. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. I'm sorry I have to run back to campus for grocery bingo.
Well, enjoy.
Miss out of that.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, bingo is the thing here, that's what I have.
All right, moving on. Northwest Minnesota Foundation.
Dawn, that's you.
Sandy,
Sandy, you might want your coat.
the basketball player will need it.
It's warm today, though.
Okay. Dawn, one of the goals of the child care activities is to find ways to fund operating and capital expenses, to reduce the expenses and make child care more affordable. One of the ways to do that is by creating a foundation that can give grants to assist with those types of expenses. Northwest Minnesota Foundation hosts foundations like that. So I have been talking with Dawn, and the rest of the team has been talking with Dawn about how to accomplish that, and Dawn is going to explain how that works. Okay?
Okay, thanks, Paul. So one of the things, I'm going to hear feedback, so I apologize if I stumble over my words a bit. But the Northwest Minnesota Foundation is a community foundation. We serve 12 counties of northwestern Minnesota. We serve from Hubbard County up to Lake of the Woods, over to Kitson, and back down to Norman County. We've been serving this region for 35 years. And I think Paul provided in your packet some information about the Northwest Minnesota Foundation as well as our philanthropy work. So you can reference that, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them. But one of the key portions of our mission really is to promote philanthropy in the region. And we do that by holding funds for communities, nonprofits, or different purposes throughout our 12-county region. Currently, NMF hosts 415 funds in our 12-county region, with each having its own mission and purpose. So when a fund is established with the Northwest Minnesota Foundation, we define a purpose, what your fund wants to do. We define and identify who fund advisors are. These are the people who are going to be making decisions about how to raise money for the fund and how to give out money for from the fund. An agreement is drafted. It's approved by the Northwest Minnesota Foundation Board of Directors and approved by those people who are identified as fund advisors. And then the fund is able to be started with $5,000 in order to establish the fund. In this specific case, my understanding is that establishing a fund is an effort between different groups within the city of East Grand Forks, but the fund is going to be separate from the city and separate from the school district. This will be a standalone fund that operates under the Northwest Minnesota Foundation 501c3 status. To be a fund with the Northwest Minnesota Foundation, we provide different services. We provide everything from all of the charitable gift receipting. So anytime somebody makes a gift to the fund, it is tax deductible. We provide documentation of that gift. We provide their receipt of that gift. We also provide online giving options if people want to give online. We provide a giving link online that people can give on. We provide guidance in fundraising, and we provide guidance in how to give the money back out. In this case, since you are looking at giving money out to for-profit businesses, the grants would have to either flow through a public entity, in which Paul and I are talking through some of those details now. What Paul is looking at establishing with us is a non-endowed fund. So this is a spendable only fund. So money's going to come in and go right back out to those childcare businesses that are so needed in your community. The impact that this kind of fund can have is really profound. Not only does it provide a charitable opportunity for people to support childcare in your community, but it can really help accomplish some really big goals in your community. And it also provides connection with others who are working on similar projects throughout the 12-county region. So we know of other communities and places that are working on similar projects that we could help you make some connection to. There is a small fee that we do charge. We charge 1.5% on an annual basis of what the fund balance is. That fee is charged on June 30th of every year. And so it's not a large fee because we feel that providing a philanthropic impact within our 12-county region is something that is really important for us to do. Next steps that need to happen in order to establish a fund is that there will also be a presentation to the City Council tonight at 5 p.m. There's a meeting scheduled with the school board to address any questions that they have in December. And then we need to really identify who are the fund advisors, what is the real purpose of the fund, and draft an agreement, secure the initial gift, and then to begin fundraising and paying of expenses. So I know you may all have questions about what this means, and I'm happy to address any of those questions that you have.
First thing to point out, the fee that's charged comes from the fund balance. It did not come from anybody else. And you see the other person up for us here, Diane Stordahl, is also on screen. She's with the school district, and she's been an integral part of this effort to working toward the fund, the possibility of a fund. And we are both looking for ways to do this so there's no out-of-pocket expenses for either the city or the school district when we do this. We know how tight the budgets are, so we're looking for ways to do this and provide assistance to child care without taxing any of the resources that are public resources for the city or the school board. And we've left you speechless. We can hear that.
With that $5,000 balance that you need to get the fund started, and we talked about how this is going to be basically a pass-through, that we're going to send it right out to businesses. Do we need to maintain that $5,000 balance to stay in good standing with the foundation?
Yeah. We'd like to see a balance kept in there of some amount, but it doesn't have to be the full $5,000.
Okay.
And later on the
And
agenda,
particularly because childcare is such a strong focus of ours that we really do want to see childcare continue to expand in the region.
and later on the agenda is one opportunity to get the $5,000 as well. You identified, I see you pulling the thing out.
Well, I noticed as I read this last night, in the First Children's Finance,
Yes.
under their guidelines, number 8 says that fiscal agent agrees to manage grant funds and reporting requirements at no charge.
Yes.
So how do we apply for this grant?
We get the grant, we turn it over, they don't charge us because the funds would be handled through Northwest Minnesota Foundation. That the funds have already been turned over to an outside agency. They give us the back of the information. We're the fiscal agent for that grant. We respond to First Children's Finance, and we do not take any fee for handling the money from First Children's Finance.
Okay.
Okay?
So my question on that, then who does the reporting for the First Children's Finance? Does Northwest Foundation, or do we?
They would give it to us, and we would end up turning around and showing how the money's been spent. Okay?
And then we would just ask for reimbursement on a monthly basis, quarterly, or?
We could do either. So
Okay.
we could either pay vendors directly, or we could provide reimbursement on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think it's a great program. You know, I see it as this framework that, you know, we could get ourselves in this process, and we'd have a lot of work to do to develop a board of trustees and all of the rules for managing the fund, and we'll get to all that. But if we get in the queue here, we're in this process, you know, so dollars can flow in, dollars can flow out, and then we'll have a lot of work here locally, I would assume, to set up how we're going to use this tool, right?
And this is a long-term tool.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is set something up that can be used over the long term instead of the short term.
Sure.
Something that'll be here today, 10 years from now, 30 years from now if possible.
And so like details like fund balance, or if we want this directed towards capital projects or operating expenses, all that's yet to come in future conversations, right?
Yes, this is basically an intro today.
Yep.
And this could be set up as like an East Grand Forks Community Fund, so if right now our focus is childcare, and that's what we need to get the grants, in 5 years, we may have housing as an issue that we could then use the funds.
Well, we could end up having another fund that deals with housing.
Okay, so you're
For
thinking
example.
of separate funds?
Yes, this would be
gotta be better.
childcare, and we define the purpose,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean this can be an exclusive fund, that this can be the only fund that we
Yep.
do through Northwest Minnesota Foundation. For example, you've talked about some of the things that Diane and Dawn and the team and I have talked about as we've discussed this, and that is, do we want to make it just do something for East Grand Forks or do something for the region for childcare? We focused on East Grand Forks. It's probably easier and more manageable. If it works, it sets an example for other communities so they can do that. You know, we've talked about whether it should be an endowed fund or I don't remember the name for the other one, and we've decided to go with the non-endowed fund at this point, and we can always change over to an endowed fund in the future.
But if
Okay?
you start as an endowed fund, it has to stay as an endowed.
There has to be
endowed
a
fund.
certain amount, yes.
Yeah, once it's put into the endowment, that
Yes.
stays.
So-
You can't-
There are all kinds of things that still have to be worked out, but at this point, it's making sure that everybody is aware of what's going on, what we're trying to accomplish, and that we're trying to do this so that there is no public cost involved as well.
But this, maybe I'm looking at it a little bit simplistically because I don't understand everything on this, but it seems like to me that this would allow even some of the employers in the area who are concerned about this to participate in this fund too?
They could contribute
Because
to the fund so it could be
It's
used.
a nonprofit.
Yes.
So I mean, it kind of sets up the framework to get some more participation from people in the community as I'm understanding this. Is that right?
Ideally, each of you works for an employer.
Yeah.
As an employer, you could contribute to the fund, and that would be some of the money that would pass through.
Yeah, because I mean, I know people have played around with the idea of having their own daycare or childcare service, and it's not feasible if it seems like for one business to have that. I mean, we heard about that through all of our town hall meetings, so this seems like a good way to kind of have a place for this to go.
Yes,
So, okay.
yes.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that because that's how I thought it. I
That's
see it
one
working.
that's one of the outcomes that's possible.
Okay.
Is you could, for example, we could, if we work with a particular provider, for example, who wants to reserve places for business A, B, or C, they could contribute it in there. The provider asks for funds for assistance, and the funds would go out to assist and reduce the cost for those employers. Do I understand that right, Dawn?
Yes, yep.
Okay? Does that help?
No,
There
that
would be
helps out
lots of
tremendously.
opportunities.
I guess
that
I
would be
understand it
available
better
to
than I
us.
thought, so.
Okay, so there's a lot of flexibility, but there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of opportunity.
And I want to say the wonderful thing about the Northwest Minnesota Foundations, they've been doing this kind of stuff for years and years. They have many community funds and have helped other communities do things, so it's a top-notch organization.
So, Paul, I have a question. So, on the back page of this memorandum that you did, so we would be running all of this stuff through the foundation here? for like goal number one, when we do an annual meeting recognition, would we be sending all those funds through them to do that?
It could, but what we've been talking about on that is having a particularly a local sponsor to cover those costs so that we don't take it from other places that might need the funds. But yes, potentially that type of thing is also possible. But my own feeling is that I'd much rather be using the money to assist providers and find other sponsors who are willing to pitch in for that event, for example.
Okay, and I was just checking, because
Yeah.
I'm in that child care group, and I just want to make sure I
Okay.
understand what the process is.
Well, and I think it's so important to get this set up now, because right now, we already have the ability to apply for that grant from
Yeah.
First Finance, or First Children's Finance. We may run across something that you need that vehicle to hold your money, and we need this set up so that we're able to do those kind of things.
Yeah, does the Northwest Minnesota Foundation provide assistance with like setting up bylaws and kind of helping us get our sub-foundation in place and all of our processes correct?
We have documents that outline the roles and responsibilities of all the fund advisors.
Okay.
Yes, so we have all of that in place, and we would make recommendations as to what kinds of things actually process through the fund and what things might go to local sponsorships, as Paul was talking about, so.
Yeah, that'd be great.
They're the experts. To use a medical analogy, I'm going to have back surgery coming up. I don't really want to go to a GP to do the back surgery. I want to make sure it's a neurosurgeon, somebody who's a specialist. They're the specialist. And it's important, in my opinion, that we have somebody who knows what they're doing do it.
You can do your back surgery.
No, thank you.
Okay.
You're an electrician. You might get the neurology right.
Yeah.
Okay?
We'll wire it up.
Yep. So, other thoughts, questions?
Nope.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll see you at 5 tonight, too.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well marketed, respected. Yeah, you're represented.
All right, moving down to Sunshine Terrace,
No.
What did
can
you
we
see
move-
yet?
You skipped
Oh,
the second
yeah.
Northwest Minnesota Foundation.
Northwest Minnesota Foundation
The Main Street.
System Revitalization Grant Program.
Yes. Nate Haskell had a conflict, could not be here today. He's the manager of the program for Northwest Minnesota Foundation. We've been in touch with the businesses. I have been in touch. Dale and Brian went out and talked with a lot of the businesses face-to-face, with the businesses in the target area. And it's basically 30% grant money that's available for these businesses. If we oversubscribe, it might end up being a little bit less than 30%, but we want to make sure that we subscribe for at least 100% of the $400,000+ that are available for that grant dollars. The applications are made to the Northwest Minnesota Foundation. Nate says that he's been receiving a lot of calls and inquiries from us, and he thanks us for sharing the information.
Yeah, good. I would just add, Dale and I aren't done yet. We focused downtown first, hit up all the businesses down there in person. We need to get out on 220, go see Justin and everyone north, see Ben, we want to kind of touch base face-to-face with everyone in town that we can. I was really impressed by like how appreciative everyone was to just like come and talk to a person rather than an email. So it was nice to get to know some new folks too.
They were happy to teach you.
Is there some geographic limitations for that?
It's basically
The whole town.
everything north of the Red Lake River.
Yeah.
Yes, there are geographic limitations, but the territory that was drawn, Ron, is basically all of East Grand Forks that's north of the Red Lake River.
And it's on the form. Like there's a little map that shows what areas are qualify for it.
Was there
Your
some
office is included.
excitement in what you were
You don't have to.
It was
sharing with them?
Yeah, it was great.
Dennis can get
I think we surprised the gal that works at what's that
businesses.
ladies' clothes store.
Just a
A
building.
couple guys walked in and she's like, "Whoa,
What's going on?
what's going on here?" We're like, "Wow."
And
I gotta read it.
it's not just for owners, tenants can apply too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so if you have a business in particular, it can also be used for multifamily housing. You can apply, okay?
How would a tenant use it?
If you're doing tenant improvements, if you're doing
Fit-ups.
some signage or facade improvements under your lease, something like that.
Okay.
But the if you go to the city's Economic Development Authority, EDA webpage, you can get the information on how, it has links. They worked the last time I tested them, but they have links to be able to connect to the application site. Okay?
We don't decide who gets the money either. Goes through.
There are people, Brian and I, for example, are on the review committee.
Yeah.
There is a local review committee that will make decisions on
No,
applications.
you word it that way, no.
Okay?
But most of it goes through Bemidji through that.
They have local people advising them on how to allocate the funds.
Yeah, but we got a really good reception from the people that we talked to. You know, it's pretty clear once you kind of walk through it. This grant could cover 30% of a potential reinvestment in your property, and you know, a lot of people have like bathroom projects, or you know, there's a roof that I need to get to, things like that. That 30% off is, you know, heck of a deal. So we've had a lot of great conversations.
Okay?
And there's $421,000, I
Something
think,
like that, yes.
we can qualify for. I sure hope we get more than that in applications, and then all the dollars come to East Grand Forks.
And there's more.
Is there a max on what's
No.
allowed to somebody?
421,000. But we wouldn't, I would expect we have more
Right,
people
I just
apply than
wondering
that.
if, you know,
But
just like how we do our loan funds here, where we'll only do a third of a project up to a max of something.
there was no max set up.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a grant too, you know, so you don't have to pay it back. It's really a nice deal.
Obviously, we'd like to help as many people as possible.
Yeah.
That's the goal,
Yeah.
to have a lot of investment, create additional jobs, create additional opportunities here.
We could use some help. There's a lot of businesses that, you know, you don't have like a standard storefront where you walk in and say hi. So if anyone here knows people that may own some property out, you know, on the north end or the industrial park or Business 2, spread the word, you know. We'll go see Burt's and all those guys, but I know there's a lot of other businesses in there that I wouldn't know who to contact.
And a lot of times the store manager is not the person to talk to.
Right.
It's, a lot of times you have to get to the business owner. Okay. Deadline, important thing, deadline is December 20. So you need to get the work done and apply if you want to get the money.
Right.
Not the work done, you need to get the application done.
Okay.
Just get the
Don't do the work first.
Thanks.
Don't do the work
Boy.
first.
And this could go
Do
towards
the application.
architectural design. It could go, you know, like you could be pretty creative for where these dollars could go into for reinvestment in your property or your rented property.
Infrastructure is one that is not allowed, remember?
Right.
Public infrastructure.
Public.
It's pretty much open for a lot of other things.
It is. Yeah. Signage, all sorts of good stuff. ADA issues that are like out there.
Yeah.
Great chance to get a third of it almost paid for. So.
So it's only for businesses, it's not for
No, it's not
governments?
accurate. It wouldn't be for a single-family home, Carla.
No, like governments or nonprofits.
Governments cannot take advantage of this either.
Schools.
Public body.
Right. Sacred Heart most likely would qualify. Private business. I'd have to check.
I would
I
be
bet not.
skeptical, but I'd have to run it by Nate to be sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Worth a try.
They're always welcome to apply. I encourage people to apply. If the decision is made that they don't qualify, they will be notified. I do not intend to let anybody hang, and if that's done, it's done by accident, not by design.
Sure.
Anything else on the street vitalization grant program? Okay. Sunshine Terrace rent increase.
That's Nancy's.
That's me, and I'm going to apologize in advance. Looking through the increase proposal, she didn't actually put any proposals into it.
I was just said that.
So when she handed me this information, I was kind of thrown by that. She forgot to include it. I have it written down here.
Right now, inflationary rates for rents are anywhere between 15 and 25%. I'm not sure if we're willing to go up that high at this point in time. So what I did was I looked at an inflationary increase of between 7 and 8%, which is kind of where we're holding right now. From a full inflationary standpoint for increase in costs. So what that does is it puts us in a range between let's see here, one bedroom, $647 to $653. So we're averaging about $650. So the rent would increase about $45 per month for a one bedroom. Two bedroom current rate is $745. 7 to 8% is $52 to $60 increase. So we're looking at $800 if we kind of make it an even amount. Three bedroom, 7 to 8% is $64 to $73 per month, which brings us up to about $980 for a three bedroom. If you look, we have a payment standard that housing's willing to assist with. A majority of our tenants are currently on housing assistance, so this would not affect them in any way, shape, or form of how much they would need to provide. We kind of run around the Green Acres Town Square apartment current lease rates, so I would feel that if we went up that 7 to 8%, that would help us with our increases in utilities, things like that.
So
Stay with
Nancy,
the inflationary rate. Yes.
what would you suggest for the rates for each of those again? I didn't write them down.
$650 for a one bedroom, $800 for a two bedroom, and $980 for a three bedroom.
Thank you.
And you said utilities are included in this too, in that rent price, or?
Yes, some are.
Some
Yep,
are, okay.
Yep, like, well, cable's not a well,
Right, cable, they like electric?
yep,
And then water
yep,
and garbage?
Yep.
Sewer, okay, and sewer
Yep.
then, okay.
yep.
I'm assuming these numbers that you have are 2022, so they'll be increasing as well? So we'll probably still be behind, like
Yeah.
examples
Yep,
that you gave?
these are all the ones that are current
Yeah.
rentals.
So they'll
So if
probably be
theirs go
increased as
up,
well.
we'll still be lower, yes.
Do you know if theirs include utilities?
No, not all of them include utilities. I think for Green Acres, you have to pay electric, because they all are metered, so. Town Square, I'm not so sure.
With seeing that most of them that are on assistance that are at Sunshine Terrace, does that more come from just applying for the additional assistance then? So it's not coming actually out of that person's pocket? Is that
That's correct.
correct? Okay.
Yep. With the housing standards or the payment standards that they have there, they will pay up to, what we would increase it, because they qualify for a certain amount based on whatever. So it would adjust based on whatever they qualify for, based on their income. So that, I can't guarantee that they wouldn't have to pay more, but that's all income-based, and it's less pertaining to what we increase our rent. So.
And it's including the utility cost there too, which we know that's been going up.
Yes.
I mean, we can't just always continue to absorb those costs either.
When you've raised the rate, or when we've raised the rates in the past, has that increased the number of vacancies?
No.
It has not. Okay.
No. We've, up till COVID, we've always had a waiting list. This is the first year that we've had to do some advertising to get people in there, but it hasn't been because of the increase in our rent. It's just been, it's just been a lack of renters, I would say. If you've ever been to Sunshine Terrace, it's got a very unique dynamic to its tenants, so sometimes too that doesn't always appeal to everyone, but.
Is this something you need a motion on from our board here, or is this
Yes.
a recommendation to the council?
Nope. You are the owners of the building, so technically this would be your motion, and then we have to provide housing a 60-day notice. So these increases would start the 1st of February. And last year, I think we did a 7% increase,
Yes.
so,
I think just with utility costs increasing how much they have, that we have to stay in there to maintain what we have. I'll make the motion to, based on Nancy's suggestion of the 650, 800, and 980.
I'll second.
Well, and if we don't do it, next year, the increase would have to be so big that it just becomes, we have to keep, we have to.
Yeah.
we're doing our best, and we seem to be not going too much over budget with our Sunshine Terrace. So I think it's good that we continually increase so that we're trying to break even with what our costs are.
Well, and we're not taking ourselves out of the market either.
No.
Obviously.
No.
So, and yeah, I think operating it as low cost as possible is in the city's best interest, in the EDA's best interest.
Excuse me.
So we got a motion by Justin,
Second by Ben.
Second.
by Ben.
Yep.
Yes.
Call roll, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Grinde,
Yes.
Hecht,
Yes.
Horken,
Yes.
Helms,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
All right, mowing contract.
It's time to renew the mowing contract. What's proposed is 3 years at a slight decrease in the rate.
Did it shrink? Nothing's
We
going
sold
down,
lots.
Paul.
We sold
lots.
lots because we sell lots.
The only comment, the only comment I would have is that the height restrictions in this contract are contrary to the city ordinance.
That's what I've noticed here too.
That 15
So-
inches of weeds is a little excessive.
So, I mean, I have a hard time approving a contract that's not consistent with the city
Oh,
ordinance.
Nancy's got some.
Yes, because I get the calls, so
And she tells me, and I asked him to cut it.
What is the city ordinance?
6 inches. Anything over 6 inches in height.
Yep.
Would you want me to have him recalculate what it would be at 6
And not
inches?
just leave.
Yes,
So-
Yeah, yes,
and
I
weeds
would like to
grow
see that.
Very, very fast,
especially in a drought.
yes.
I will do that.
But I just wanted to make that comment because I have an issue
I saw
with
that too. It was like
entering
15
into a
inches.
contract unless we were going to revise the city ordinance. Because we're requiring our residents to have one standard and then on city lots,
Different.
it's a different standard. And so that would be my observation.
That would be ridiculous. So
So you're going to
would be
have
my
them
opinion.
rebid accordingly?
Yeah, I will have him rebid,
Yeah.
submit a new price,
Okay,
So we move on.
because it'll require more mowing.
thank you.
Thank you.
So this will be tabled?
Tabled, yeah.
Yeah. It's not like we have to worry about it for a few months.
No.
I was
We
gonna
have a
say, I
little-
don't think anybody's doing
He's
anything
not
right
mowing the
now.
snow yet.
Paul, one comment on this item, Paul, is I'd like you to have a conversation with Public Works, and let's have a comparison of our
They don't
folks to
have
do
the
the mowing.
capacity to do it.
Yeah, I think we've checked that a couple
Yeah.
of years
Checked
ago.
that in the
and
past. They
we
do not
did
have
ask
the
that
capacity
question.
to add this to their activities.
Yeah.
And we'd also do it with Parks and Rec, and it's the same issue with
I
Parks and Rec.
got one, I've got a court at one.
We've asked the question before.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the issue, is capacity. That's why we contracted out.
A question on that though is with the weeds being kind of more the issue than anything else, is it possible that Public Works could spray for weeds on these lots at all for us?
Oh, boy.
And just to see, I'm just asking, I don't know.
It'd look like a desert.
Well, I mean, I'm just,
Yeah, I'd
if
like,
weeds are really what's gonna cost us because they grow the fastest,
Well,
if we could get
sometimes
some weed
you-
control.
Sometimes you need something growing to control
The
erosion
erosion.
too.
Right.
So we can talk with Public Works about that.
yeah. I'd like to talk to Public Works just holistically. Let's make sure we're taking the right approach here.
No problem.
And that's a good point. Maybe they have a better idea on an approach that we should take other than just knocking it down with a mower.
Right. Yeah, pre-emergent.
Why, and spread it?
Okay.
All right. You sound like you have a strong opinion.
All right, so that's tabled. Now we'll move on to covenants.
Ron and I have talked a lot about covenants. Our predecessor, the EDHA, prepared covenants for the land. We inherited those covenants one of the things that we have found is that the covenants for Water's Edge First were recorded, but the covenants for Water's Edge Second, Third, and for Coulee View were never recorded. Never having been recorded, we can't, they're not something that any of the eligible people can enforce. Okay? So, first thing, only recorded covenants can be enforced. That's Water's Edge First. Only those parties given standing by the covenants have the right to enforce those covenants. For Water's Edge First, those parties are the property owners. The enforcement parties may or may not choose to enforce the covenants. Enforcement is a private action, not a public action. The city as an entity does not have the right to enforce covenants. Nancy can't enforce the covenants, for example. Even though she gets asked to a lot of times, she can't do it. She has no authority to do that. Said right is restricted and does not include the city as an entity. Cities enforce ordinances. When conflicts conflict with the ordinances, the city can only enforce the ordinance. It cannot enforce the covenants. So if the covenant says you can have a 3-foot fence and the ordinance says you can have a 6-foot fence, the only thing the city can enforce as a city is the 6-foot fence, not the 3-foot fence. Okay? Sometimes people call planning to enforce the covenants because they do not want to go to the expense of private enforcement, or they do not want to offend the neighbor. It's easier to have us do it. You hadn't noticed that, had you, Josh? Mm-mm. Never occurred to you? Mm-mm. You seem to think that the city will enforce covenants that may conflict with city ordinances and regulations. That's not true. The city, as a public entity, does not have the authority to enforce covenants. The Community Development Office, including planning and building inspections, will not hold permits or wait to hear or receive permission from those that enforce covenants before they issue a permit. They review the permit applications based on the city code. The city is a property owner in Water's Edge First and may, as a property owner, enforce covenants if it so desires until the right to enforce as a property owner is extinguished. In other words, till after we've sold all the lots. Any property owner in the subdivision may also enforce the covenants in a private action. What it means is if somebody wants us to enforce a covenant, I'm going to be bringing it back to you guys and saying, do we want to spend the money to enforce the covenant? As a property owner, not as an entity, not as a city, but as a property owner.
Wasn't it that you have to form an association to enforce covenants?
Private individuals can also enforce. Yes. You don't have to have an association.
Okay.
What and Ron and I've talked about when when the city's right to enforce will be extinguished under the recorded covenants too.
But in practicality, how would that ever work? Like, am I going to tell Justin to mow his lawn? Like, we're in the same
That's where you end up going to court.
Yeah, I mean,
you end up going to court and suing him because he's in violation of the covenants to do that.
There's some pretty good parking restrictions, like on the south end of Grand Forks, that
interesting.
That I've been aware of, made aware of, developing out there, and there has been some conflict and conflict resolution.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So it does happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
And homeowners swearing on you.
Boats, campers.
Oh, yeah.
That tends to be what the problems are.
Never.
You know, people
park
a camper in front of the neighbor's house.
Yeah.
You know,
or in their driveway.
in the driveway.
A lot of times the covenants will say you can't park something in a driveway, and people do it anyway, and the neighbors get upset about it. And they call Nancy, can't you stop this? And Nancy says, no, I don't have the authority to do it. And then they get mad at Nancy. And there's no reason to get mad at Nancy for not doing something that she has no authority to act on.
So just as an example, we have the covenants on, maybe it's not on all the Water's Edge stuff, but I know right away there was a covenants based on the square footage footprint of the home, correct? So is that something that would be enforced when they bring a plan? No. So if somebody built a house.
We have a square footage requirement in our general performance standards, which is, I think, 700 square feet.
But I think those houses on Water's Edge had to have like a 1,700 square footprint or something like
Yep.
that, right?
Depending upon
And
the
an
site,
attached
type of house,
garage.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if somebody came forward, bought a lot, brought a plan forward and it didn't meet those covenants and built it, it would have to be enforced by somebody complaining about that, hey,
Yep.
I did it because I thought I had to and you got away with it. So,
Right.
so what you're saying is that if they brought the plans, we would have nothing to do with it then from
We
there?
still don't review them, but I
Okay.
will tell you this, up until finding out that a number of the covenants weren't recorded, I still had copies of them and I provided them to the property owners.
Sure.
Because they, some of them are recorded, we thought all of them were recorded, they were all provided to the property owners. And then, I just told them that, your neighbors are expecting you to build something similar. Now, we do have some very unique city code guidelines that basically state that your house will have the look and feel of the neighborhood. So
that leaves it open.
So if I, we don't allow, like mobile homes, modular homes have to have the look and feel of the neighborhood. So typically when they bring that in, we tell them that if it has an attached garage, this would have to have an attached garage to it so that it doesn't stand out in terms of that. But we're not looking at general square footages. So we can get to a certain point where the city does have some, and I visited with Ron about that as well. We have some ability to enforce things so that they look similar in nature. So like the one question we had just the other day was a shouse. Somebody wanted to build a shouse, which is a shed. I mean, it's a pole shed that has a house in it. And some of them are quite beautiful. They have a very nice awning in the front, but let me tell you, the sides and the back look like a pole shed. I mean, that's what it looks like. It looks like a pole shed. You can't fake it any other way. You can put all the pretty stuff on the front of it, but it still looks like a 2,400 square foot pole shed. We do not have regulations on houses. We have regulations on sheds, which technically what it is, and one of them is that a shed is not a habitable space. So, we can kind of, we work through certain things. That doesn't mean that we can't have them, but houses look a lot nicer on a lake property or out in the country. I don't think anybody on Water's Edge is going to want to have a pole shed, occupying the full lot, with a pretty little porch on the front. But, like I said, we have specific ordinances in place where we don't enforce covenants where they're specific to that property. We do have general performance standards that we can use to make it look and feel similar to the other houses in the neighborhood.
Right.
But when it comes down specific to a site, size of a house, we have to enforce, we're limited to enforce what the city regulations are as opposed to what the covenants are.
How much different are the covenants from these performance
Depends upon the
standards? Like, are they
I
dramatically
think some of
different,
them, I think one of the covenants was that you couldn't put up a fence.
No, I don't recall that.
I thought that was in one of the Water's Edge second.
It may
I
have
know-
been the second because it's not recorded.
Yep, Water's Edge third was no detached sheds or sheds smaller than a certain thing, and a planning commission member put up a shed, and he was one that, I knew the Water's Edge third ones weren't recorded, but Water's Edge second I did not. And he just said, I went over to the county recorder's office, that's not recorded, I'm putting a shed up, so.
And we can't enforce, especially we can't enforce, one, we can't enforce a covenant, two, we can't enforce something that's not recorded. We can only enforce the ordinances. Okay?
Well, but it sounds like to me that there's only covenants in one spot, and
yes,
that there's nothing that we can really do about it, is what I'm getting
It's
from
too
this.
late. You'd have to have every property owner sign
Right.
on to do that.
So I
And
guess-
I don't know if that we as a city That would be a policy question for the city council.
So I guess
but don't know
what
if
are
it's
we
necessary to
asking
get there.
for in this? Is
Yeah.
this just more like letting everybody know that this is the case, or is
That's why I
this?
said, why is there covenants is then?
Well, it's here to let you guys know, because we get the questions. We
Okay.
want you to know what's going on, and because we're on camera, it lets the city as a whole know what's going on, too.
Now, Water's
that's
Edge
fine.
First is recorded.
Right, and I see
And,
that.
and that, and I think that's, majority of that's built out.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the only one that technically, even if a resident has an issue, that can actually fight it.
Yes.
Because the other ones aren't recorded, so even if somebody has an issue with something going on there, there's
Too bad,
nothing
so
they have
sad.
a right to even fight.
So really,
There's no
there's
covenants.
no covenants on any of the other ones. There's just on the one.
Yep.
That's right.
And I didn't, Cooley View, I was unaware that there was covenants written.
I have copies of all the covenants that were written, and there were covenants written for 2, 3, and Cooley View.
Okay, and he was,
They never recorded them.
I was going to say, I think he wrote them, he might have provided them to you, but I discouraged him from writing any because he would be the only one that would be enforcing them. And so you might have a draft copy, but those were never recorded. And the difference between Cooley View and like a covenant is we also have PUD standards because it's a planned unit development. So that kind of sets up
The standard.
they set up like covenants in the sense that it has square footages, it shows footprints, we know what the building sizes are on some of them, we know what the setbacks are, we know what we've changed impervious coverage, so we've addressed things that are different than what other places in the city are, compared to our city code, and a PUD can do that. So what I felt were easily enforceable, we put in that PUD, so,
Which is the way to do it.
yes.
Can this memorandum be sent out to these property owners or to these properties so that they're aware of the situation then as well? Just to make sure. I mean, I'm just
I
wondering.
don't think you want to do that.
Yeah,
I'm just asking the question. I mean, if we want to be on.
okay, the question is, can it be done? The answer is yes,
Okay.
it can be done. The next question is the one that Josh raised. Is it something that we really want to do? And I would discourage it. If people ask questions, we're glad to share the information, but, it's not something that, if you don't have something, what are you telling people?
Right.
What we do is, we'll continue to do is make the covenants available to anybody who purchases a lot in Water's Edge First, because that's where the covenants exist. For the other, there's nothing that exists.
Okay, so we're not going to provide them the covenants then for the other ones either
No.
that were written.
That's
Okay.
Don't anymore.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Stop that.
that's okay.
Less is more.
What? No, and that's fine. I just don't want to be seen as misrepresenting something.
Correct.
Since we're involved in that there are these covenants, but there really aren't. But now we know they're not recorded. So that's my.
If anybody asks, we will inform them.
Yeah, I just want to be upfront and as transparent as possible in these transactions.
We'll leave it up to Stumpy. Right, buddy?
Whatever.
And it has always been practice of our office that we provide copies of things that show the county recorder's stamp on it and signatures, because oftentimes we've found that there's been other developers that have been providing draft copies of plats and things like that that weren't what was recorded, and so it's definitely something that staff has always done, is provided a copy that's been recorded so that they can see that it has a recorder stamp on it.
Sure.
Otherwise, we could be providing them with information that it wasn't truthful either. So at least anybody that we've provided covenants with are ones that I have that show the recorded stamp on it, so.
Any other
else?
questions on this?
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, FCF Rural Community Child Care Grants.
This is what we kind of rolled into the discussion earlier about the grant program, that because we have been a participant and have a plan for child care, we are now an eligible applicant, have been invited to participate in this program, and will be looking to put things together to do that. That was one of the things. We have a meeting on Mondays. It's the third Monday of the month. And that was one of the things that we discussed at the meeting about possible activities that would be included in this application.
Sure.
We have one business, for example, that's trying to open up a center, child care center, and they need commercial grade kitchen equipment, and that could be something that could be included here. And that would provide upon opening, that would provide 74 child care slots. Yeah, big, really big. It's something
If they can find the staff.
That's why the goal 5 is in there, for increasing the number of staff, and that's why we have that meeting going on, and that activity going on too. Also, Pine College has a online program for child care training, the training of child care workers. So we're starting to access that program as well.
Cool.
And the high school has ways to train kids to get into child care as well. Okay?
Okay. New deed programs for small business funding.
One of the COVID acts recreated, revived the state small business credit initiative. Minnesota has received $97 million for that, and they are launching multiple programs related to that. And this is just informational for you. We will monitor to see what ones we can have access to. The first 2 are ones that we could not have access to, but we'll monitor that. And then if it's business specific, we'll share with businesses. Okay?
Okay. All right, let's move back up to unfinished business.
No, we have
We still have I
right
and J.
meeting, the meeting calendar.
Oh, I thought you wanted to wait.
No, we can do these. We'll get back to that last.
Okay.
And it makes it easier for Brenda, too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brenda.
What I have provided to you is a proposed meeting calendar. What it does is it works around the time that I should not be available, okay? So if this is acceptable, it also has the deadlines for applications. If this is acceptable, we'll move forward. It may be that we need to move May. In fact, I'm going to suggest, let's change the May meeting, the April meeting to the 25th, and the May meeting to the 23rd, and make sure there's a margin there. And if this is acceptable, I would ask that you approve it.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Question.
When you're done with that, I have something before you close.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Looks like you're good to go.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question on that first community grant. So are those grants going to funnel through us or through the Northwest Minnesota Foundation? Or
This one will be us, but I want to work with Dawn because we may use the funds to set up the foundation and then have it be funded from us through the foundation. So that may be what we end up doing with it, Carla, and I want to work with Dawn on that to see what's the best way to do it.
Okay, but the business actually applies for the grant, we don't, right?
For which one, on these?
For the
No.
community childcare, the first,
I believe that we do, but I haven't looked at it that closely.
okay, because I'm just trying to figure out what the whole process is. So say, that organization applies for $70,000. So that organization actually goes through us and we apply for it, or?
I think so. That's how I understand it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, people listening know what the process is too, because
That's how I understand it.
businesses. And the other thing to keep in mind in that is that it has to be spent within 6 months.
Yes.
But you could, if you're doing some structural things, you can have the stuff ordered
And paid for.
but you don't have to have it completed.
Yes.
But there will be another funding round
Next spring.
between March 20th, March 31st. So if you know of any place that's interested in doing a child care center, they can work with Polk County to what the requirements and restrictions are, say in a building and stuff, so that there's time to plan that. So come March, they're ready to apply for that grant.
Yeah.
So this is just a first round. So if you know people that are already ready and know what their things are, and some of those things, I know we talked with the business earlier, that, you know, when we were doing, last April when we were doing our town hall, and some organization used to have Tri-Valley there, Head Start, and they were under the assumption that they couldn't have things there because they needed sprinklers. So, for example, that's something that could be done with this grant. So, you know, there is, you can look at the list and see what the, you know, grant requirements are. So if you know of anybody, let Paul know and we can help them with that.
Thank you.
All right, 2023 priorities.
That noise is, they're replacing the roll down for our window upstairs, and it gets noisy up there. If we can hear it down here, you can tell how noisy it gets up there. Okay. Meeting priorities. I updated the list from last year. Are there any additions, exclusions, or does it still reflect where we're headed?
I'd say it reflects where we're headed.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Motion? You're supposed to ask that. By
I'll
motion.
make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Ben, second by Justin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Keep moving forward, buddy.
Can I just make a comment about what happened at the Grand Forks City Council meeting last night? That I don't know if everybody's aware of it.
No. Yes. No, we're not aware is what I was answering.
Yeah. So it was, we are, you know, we're looking at a bridge consultant, and we were going to split that cost with the city of Grand Forks. The city council last night did not approve that, so everybody's aware of that. And it would have been a study for both the Merrifield Bridge and a inner city bridge, so everybody's aware of that.
They didn't approve it for what reasons? Are they just not interested in? Are they not interested in moving forward with looking at bridge options? I mean, is that something that?
Clearly, that's the reason why.
Well, and you know, actually, as a citizen, I have some really big concerns. I mean, there was a near fatal accident in downtown Grand Forks. Because I wasn't aware of that. That those beat trucks go all the way down South Washington. Then they come downtown, and this young man is still fighting for his life that got hit by a beat truck in Grand Forks. So, you know, as a community citizen, I'm concerned of the welfare that we're just going to ignore the Merrifield Bridge, not just the city bridge, but I know a bridge in Merrifield.
And I only ask that if that's something that we're having you use resources and time for, is it something that, are we spinning our wheels on it and could have you focus on other things rather than that be one of the priorities?
It's a very low item in time spent on it.
It's just with the chamber. I mean, there's a group, a chamber
There's a
group
group.
that meets, but otherwise, you know, city council has done all the other work. They've looked at, you know,
I think I
hiring the
may have
professional.
spent 10 hours during the past year.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if it's taking up more of your time, I think as a board, we'd like to know, because, you know, we would probably change that priority for you, because based on what's going on.
Yeah.
So if
I
it
don't
is taking up more
anticipate-
of your time, but it should definitely be something that's on our radar, because it does affect all of us. So.
Well, and as businesses, it,
Right.
it definitely affects.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Crystal Sugar.
It affects
So I
a
don't know
lot
if
of
there's
businesses,
things that, as businesses, that you know, could help move that forward or not, but, you know, I mean, I know
Well,
you
just-
guys both travel on that too, but.
Yeah, anybody that's traveling, moving equipment and things, your choices are either, you know, go up to the Kennedy or go through downtown, and those are the only options we've got, and neither of them are great options.
Or you go to Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think keeping an eye on it is probably the best thing, so, as long as it doesn't take up too much of your time.
I think two things is that, as Brian said, it's the city council, Grand Forks is not really excited about a bridge like East Grand Forks is. But I think the other thing that they were referring to is the fact of we just keep spending money on engineers.
On studying it.
And looking at things and not getting anywhere.
Well, I mean, this was our opportunity to actually start a real process where we could qualify for federal funds.
Yeah.
This was our chance to get in the queue and start the environmental assessment that would even consider us for, like I said, federal dollars. Without this, there is no federal dollars. There's just no bridges yet. So that's what's really disheartening about it, is we're not going to pay for these locally, wherever it gets built, 1, 2, or anywhere. It'll not happen. So we just got to continue to grind away at it, but it is very frustrating.
So in other words, we won't see it in mine or your lifetime.
We can always hope, keep pushing forward is all we can do.
Like I said.
It made people aware of it. I mean, we're talking about it here now, and,
You can always propose a ferry crossing.
Yeah.
And load the
Barge.
ferry across and go back and forth, right? Okay, next item.
Fork Spring Expo, March 25th and 26th, 2023.
My surgery is scheduled for March 21st. I cannot be there. We have already reserved the booth because Water and Light will be there, but I need volunteers to participate. You can see the hours on here, which is 10 to 6 on Saturday and 10 to 4 on Sunday. I need people to volunteer to participate on that. Okay? Just let me know.
Yeah, if you send out one of those doodle polls or something like that, Paul, that's a nice way to
I'll have to figure
put your
out how to
name
do
in.
it, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to do it either, but
Seems like a neat idea.
It does, yeah. I know how to click the box and it's when I'm open. But that's a nice way to just see who's signed up. And,
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Now we're back to the first one.
Are we sure? All right, item number 5, under unfinished business, down payment assistance program.
We've gone through this and talked, and right now, rather than spend more of our time here, I'd like to sit down with a small group and come up with something that we can bring back to this board in its entirety, so that we have some kind of unified plan. I mean, we can have something where we have a program that we try to make available for everyone buyer. We can have something where we use another organization and guarantee dollars in case they're out of dollars. There's different ways to look at this, but I need that this smaller group needs to talk and then bring something back to this committee, similar to the loan committee. And that's what I'm asking you to do, is create a smaller committee.
Just reading through a bunch of the responses from the bankers, I kind of get the feeling from them that there isn't a huge need for that program.
It's not.
And that's where I'm wondering, we got to simplify it, put it out there. If it's available for people to use, we have it. If not, again, it's not a thing that I think we need to continue to keep spinning wheels on and wasting time on it, especially for how much time we've already put into it and talked about it. Especially like with one of the bankers said with the repayment of it and repayment requirements. There's so many things out there available for people with lower income that is more of a grant that they don't have to pay back, that they're not going to come. And then if they got that, then they can't get this, or vice versa. So it doesn't seem like it's a program that's going to be really utilized very often.
Can we use this money for anything else?
Do we use it for anything else, Carl? I don't think so.
Can
It's
we?
sitting there.
But could we use it for something else? Maybe some of the other...
I have not used it for anything else. I'm not sure what the requirements are.
he's
and that
asking,
would probably
can
be-
we?
That would be a file.
have to
you'd
look at the
find into your
fund.
files, Paul. I don't have anything.
Yeah,
else.
we'd have to look at the fund to see, let's make the decision on the program, then see how much money we have in the fund and see if maybe we should have any, or what dollars we should have in that fund and maybe transfer them to something else. But let's do the first thing.
Yeah, that was because I kind of reading through the same statements and echoing what Justin had to say. It doesn't sound like our program's really helping anybody out there per se. And that's why I'm asking, maybe, if we're going to go to have a small committee, I'd rather have that committee discussing what could we use those funds that would be a benefit, I guess.
And that could be included on the committee, charge of the committee.
And that would be my thought, I guess. that-
Because some of the bankers actually kind of said,
Forget it.
I'm not going to mess with this.
Right.
Yeah, the one guy came back and just said flat out, no. I mean, we
Yeah.
wouldn't,
Well,
this wouldn't qualify.
you know, like, that's what they're saying, if it's a grant, now they gotta count that against what they owe,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Right.
then you get.
First liens
mortgages,
and all that, and
Exactly.
garbage that they don't want to deal with.
And I'm just wondering if
In
it
Northern
fits
Week.
into
Right.
other priorities that we just set forth going into 2023. I mean, that's where I would be, if we can put it into some of those, maybe that we're better off.
So there's $234,000 in there right now.
Well, when we talk on the committee level, we'll talk about that. And then maybe Carla and I should be part of that committee, and
Yes.
then two members
Nothing.
of the EDA.
Well, even if we look at, using that money until it ran out to do the forgivable loan type thing we used to do for people that bought lots, that we went away with that program. Is that something that money's feasible for?
Like I said, we'll have to look in the files.
I mean,
Paul has to see where it came from, and it's kind of like when the question came up, for example, the 401 fund with the council, which was set up as a revolving loan fund for non-electrical infrastructure projects that we have been using for assessment projects, so we haven't had go bond, so we'd have to dig to see where the money came from, what the restrictions on that. I don't have any of that in my office, so Paul must have somewhat in
We'll
his
have to look
office.
to
We'll have
see,
to look.
and it'll be archive type records.
I mean, if there's better programs available to the bankers to help people to get into housing, again, like I said, I'd rather see, if the money is usable for it, of doing $10,000 forgivable loans over so many years. If somebody buys a lot and builds a house within 2 years like we used to have, and hopefully incentivize some more lot sales and growth of more houses being built in the city.
The thing with that is that most homes were sold again within 7 years, so we only had something like 3 out of every 10 recipients who ever got to the time when the loan was forgiven.
Yeah, I paid it back.
Yeah,
And I bought another house in town.
So, I
That
mean-
was my rub against the whole program.
So,
But not with you, Paul. That
we
was before
weren't
your time.
getting to where we wanted to be with it, which is why we went away from it.
Right, but if it's initial incentive for somebody to help them buy a lot in East Grand Forks compared to Grand Forks and build, we're still getting that house built and putting that tax roll basis on the books too.
You are, it's just not, it's not getting to that end goal
Of what it's designed for.
That guy doesn't,
It's really not forgivable.
It's not
just
forgivable, 'cause
the loan for the 7
reality
years.
is you move on.
Yeah, and we had lowered it to $5,000. And what also came up was that even if there was a death, it still had to go to the 10 years, which is that really fair too? And I know that some families were very upset about that after they found out, really, we got to pay this back to the city, and my parents died.
right.
So
Yeah, and-
we'd have to work on that. If we chose to do that, we'd have to probably look at some of those things that have been frustrating to people.
And would it be better to look at a rehab program, a rehab loan program too?
That would be
This money?
exciting.
So
And maybe
let's
to
get
how-
together as a
housing,
committee and
it could
talk
be
about it.
Multi-housing too, or something.
Right.
And I'm just throwing out ideas here, just
Right,
not that
and
we
that's
have to
good.
do it, but if we can incentivize more building, which has obviously been getting tougher and tougher with construction prices, if it's something that just helps somebody purchase the lot to end up building, great, or if it gives them a little more incentive to buy a lot over here compared to Grand Forks, great. If we did it, build it as, if it's a 10-year forgivable, it's $1,000 forgiven per year. If they move after 7 years, they pay back 3,000 of it, or, whatever. I don't think most people are going to go into that thinking that if they're building a nice house, most people build a somewhat forever home, and their probably intention isn't to move again, but it happens.
Minds change every day.
Our market's changed too. I mean,
Yeah.
our neighborhoods have changed. There was a big push after the flood to fill up some of those neighborhoods, and now, I think now you're seeing those lots that we have left are in that forever home type category.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to get a couple volunteers to work on the committee with Carla and me?
Any volunteers to work on the committee?
I'll volunteer.
Daniel?
Daniel? Justin?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Thanks, guys.
We'll meet after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Move adjournment.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You got a
Don't you have
second?
one more minute to get the
Second, all in favor?
You can't steal my sheet.
Aye.
No one's opposed.